Hi, Pacific Northwest Conference. This is Jill Riley, and I'm the Assistant Communication Director for the conference. And today we welcome Nick Pringle and George Bedlion. So say hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, hey.
Hey, we're excited to have a conversation today. And I was, as we were talking before this interview, I was looking at my list of people that we keep and conversations we'd like to have, and realized these guys are kind of in the same stage of ministry. And so I wanted to talk with them together and just gain some information. So Nick, tell us just a little bit about your background at Cedar Creek, and then we'll go into the whole building part later.
I joined Cedar Creek just a little under 3 years ago, came in as an interim pastor and was with them for a couple of months. And when I joined them, we were meeting in a park, a local park out here right by a river. It was beautiful in August and September. And October, as the weather started changing, things got a little colder and a little bit more wet. But we set up worship outside, and often eagles would be flying by and wildlife would be right there while we're having church. And as the weather got bad, we had to figure out where we're going to meet next. And so
Right.
we talked with this church, New Life Church, and we rented from them on Saturday nights for worship for 2 years. And
Okay.
yeah,
Now tell me the truth. The eagle thing, was that like cue the eagle and it's like a fake one flies by?
Holy Spirit moment. It was awesome. I called it. It was God listened. It was wonderful.
That's great. That's great. George, tell me a little bit about what took you to Garden City and how long you've been there. And
Yeah, we launched in 2016, going into 2017, and as a church plant, and that was before we knew the ECC. I'd never even really heard of them, and then we were seeing a lot of cool things happen, and then we bought a property that didn't have anything built on it yet, but we were on a cool trajectory, um, and then I'd actually started building some relationships with some ECC folks, and then the pandemic hit, and everything really shifted and changed, and we ended up losing the space that we were meeting in, and that it was mid-pandemic, and we during that time we went to a full home church model. And then coming out of the pandemic, or kind of mid-pandemic coming out, we became a church plant adoption in the ECC, and Greg Yee, Peter Sung, and some others were like just amazing, super helpful in that, and basically relaunched as a church plant coming out of COVID, because just the circumstances were so wild for a church plant without its own building.
so, as I kind of indicated before, you guys are both in the process of getting into your own buildings. Nick, tell me what that looks like for you guys.
We had 5 acres of property that we had purchased years ago, and the folks of Cedar Creek faithfully paid that thing off, and we had building campaigns and all these things to pay off that property. Probably 6 months into me being here, we decided, you know what, it's better for us to sell that property, and we gained equity on that property, and we had 100% of the money to buy this building outright. And
Wow.
so we have no debt, we have no mortgage, and it's all God's story of provision. In December of last year, we purchased the property from New Life, and for a couple of months, we were kind of in that transition phase with them. And then mid-February, we were able to take it over fully as ours.
That's
Yeah.
great. And
Yeah.
one of you mentioned doing church in a trailer, out of a trailer, for years and years. And, that kind of nomadic existence for a church is super hard, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I could sense it on my people. It was time. It was a lot of, it was 20 years of hard work and setting up and tearing down church for us too. But
Yeah,
George can speak to his
absolutely.
vision.
George, how about you guys? What process are you in with gaining your own space?
Yeah, so we also had that property similar to Nick. And so when we were in mid-pandemic, it became very clear that the best thing to do wouldn't be to build brick and mortar from the ground up, just because material prices were going insanely all over the
Insanely
place.
high, yeah.
Interest rates were all over the place. So, people that we really trust, and a collective group of wise folk, really decided, let's start looking for brick and mortar that's already built. So we started a journey of looking for a space and looked at over 30 properties, and I'm on site and probably 50 to 60, like throughout the whole process. And it was long, took about 3 years. And in that time, we kept getting these just confirmations that this was a good thing to do, although it was discouraging to be looking for 3 years and not find anything. But like our team, like the search team and the folks behind it, I just felt like God had something for us. And we also noticed that coming out of COVID, just people patterns, there was a lot more of a yearning for like a place that felt secure, like a place that wasn't gonna just leave. And there was a yearning for permanence. And
Mm.
so like it all kind of coalesced in this moment where we were looking, and all of a sudden this building hit the market I think it was end of August last year or early September. But we could just see, for us, it just looked like a diamond in the rough, because we'd been looking for it. We'd wanted to build something that could be for the community, be a performing arts venue, be something that was central. And this building was an Art Deco 1930s American Legion hall, so it doesn't feel churchy. And it just hit all these things for us, from aesthetics and beauty and access and in the middle of culture. And so we this is where kind of the Covenant Properties came into the picture, which was hugely helpful. The board at the Pacific Northwest Conference came in, and just people just came and helped. We were just blown away, and green lights just kept going. The Covenant Properties with Raleigh and the gang were just so helpful and knowledgeable, and just helped on so many levels, not just the lending level, but like just decision making, church
Yeah.
leadership. We purchased the property, sometime I think in the February-ish time. As I'm looking back, I was like, when did that actually happen? But somewhere in that time. And now we've been in the process of making repairs on this beautiful old Art Deco building that needs a lot of love.
That's
Mm.
great. George, how do you keep people motivated towards continuing to love love on the church and continuing to build and and grow, like all the work that goes into it? How do you keep people motivated?
What we're learning, because I don't know that we do everything perfectly. So I don't know if
Well,
I'm
that's why I'm interviewing you. I thought
yeah,
you had everything, all the
yeah,
answers.
I'm taking
yeah,
notes, George. I need some help here, man. Come on.
yeah. But as far as like motivate, I just feel like I mean, the first thing is just, hey, is God in this? Are we sensing God in this? And just whenever you're facing a faith venture, something that takes faith and requires risk, and in church planting, or like both Nick and I are making or leading communities that are making moves that can cause fear, and it's change is involved. So anytime change is involved, risk is involved. Like that fear can really kind of grip people. Especially, we noticed coming out of the pandemic, just there was like a
Right.
lot more of a fear factor in people. And so that faith question, I just think, is so important. Like, what do we feel God is doing here? It just kind of lifts all of our eyes together,
Mhm.
to not be looking at ourselves or at the problems, but be looking for, the possibilities and where God's hand is at work. And then the other piece is that we've learned is really clarifying and making really simple and clear what the vision is and what the steps are to get there.
So one last question, and I'll let each of you answer this in your own way. We know that, the church building has been a goal for you guys. How do you foresee keeping the congregation's eyes above that sense of place and onto the mission?
Nick, I can let you jump in first on this.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, just I remember. So the first Sunday we had in here was a huge celebration, and it was like this long awaited, like, oh, we're finally here. And it felt almost like a promised land moment. Like,
Mm.
we made it, we're here. My message that day was a message of going from tent to tabernacle, and a
Mm.
sense of this nomadic sense of movement to a sense of being planted in a place, but being the church in a place.
Mm.
So what I find myself doing often is celebrating the building, but acknowledging that the people are the church, not this.
Mhm.
So that we can, when we gather, we can be encouraged here to go out from this place.
This is a channel for God's love, and it's for his people. And just
Right.
imagine, we've always had to set up and tear down. We've only had a building for 2 to 3 hours on a Sunday per week. And imagine what we've done in the community as a church that's trying to incarnate Jesus' love to the world. Imagine what we can do now that we have a building.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, and I rejoice with you. I'm excited to hear and to see what the next phase of ministry looks like for the both of you. So thank you so much for your time and for joining me and sharing with our colleagues just what God is doing in your churches.